Welcome to the Truman Charities podcast. I am Jamie Truman, your host. Did you know you should have 8 to 12 hugs per day for emotional well-being? I personally had no idea until I spoke with Amy Vale, a foster mom of 10 kiddos and the owner of For the Cubs. Amy created For the Cubs to offer parents beautiful, well-designed products to nurture their little ones at home and maybe even find some calming essentials for themselves as well. Amy's curated collections for eating, sleeping, and soothing do just that. You also have to learn about Percy, their weighted bear that has helped numerous children and adults. Some of the stories you're going to hear on this podcast from Amy will have you in tears. And every order supports kids in foster care through their nonprofit partner, One Simple Wish. This is the perfect podcast right before the holidays. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Amy as much as I did. And if you like the Truman Charities podcast, please make sure to write a review. Reviews are such a big part of growing this podcast. So please take a moment and write one. Remember, I read each and every one of them. Thanks, Amy, for coming on to talk about For the Cubs. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I was reading about your background on your website, and it's a really interesting story about how For the Cubs came about. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and why you decided to start For the Cubs?
Absolutely. I have been in marketing for many, many years. And I had always known that I wanted to start something of my own, but I wasn't quite sure of what I wanted to focus on. And my husband and I decided to become licensed foster parents. And so as we were starting to go through that process, they train you a lot in supporting kiddos who have gone through trauma and neglect. And it just sort of landed on me that there was so much need and I wanted to help more than the kiddo that's in my care at any given time. And so I sort of started to think about what the opportunity is to really nurture these kiddos in our lives. And I started to learn about the importance of hugs. We were taught that you need 8 to 12 hugs a day for emotional well-being. And that sort of got me thinking, I don't know whether I'm getting my daily quota of hugs.
I'd never heard of that.
Right? It's so crazy to think that that's such a critical part. But when you sort of think about the benefits of a hug, the deep pressure therapy being held, they're all things that are focused on nurturing. And so I started to think about building out a bear called Percy. He's designed to mimic a hug. And really sort of thought about the importance of what a hug means. And really it's to nurture belonging. And so that sort of got me thinking about the impact that parents have when they're raising their kiddos, and the importance of belonging really starts in the home. It starts with the basics of eating, sleeping, and soothing, and having those needs be met. And so that's where I started to get the idea about For the Cubs and being able to offer those basic essentials for eating, sleeping, and soothing for parents that were raising their kids to be emotionally aware, emotionally well-adjusted, and really wanting to bring up kids that were connected in a really meaningful way to the importance of belonging.
So tell me a little bit about why you decided to be a foster parent. I think it's an interesting story behind that.
Yeah, so I grew up on a vineyard in the outback of Australia, and we had a lot of international backpackers come through our property. And one of them we stayed in contact with after he had left. And he actually became a marine biologist and went over to Africa to teach folks how to fish. He was very deep within the community, very grassroots, and he ended up adopting a child from one of the local areas. And I just got to watch the impact of what it meant for a child to be adopted and given an opportunity that didn't exist in the circumstances that they were originally in. And it was never lost on me that loss is a part of adoption. Grief is a part of adoption, but there is also beautiful opportunity that are afforded when these situations arise. So knowing that adoption was always in the back of my mind in terms of what I wanted to sort of explore as I grew into an adult, my husband and I talked about it a lot. And eventually we started talking about what our family plans looked like. And I didn't have the desire to be a biological mother. And a lot of that, I would imagine, was influenced by just seeing the impact of this adoption. And so we talked a lot about it. We went to an orientation that was hosted by the department, and that felt like the best way for us to serve other families who needed us to step in and support them when they were in crisis and needed support and time to really refocus and learn what was required of them to continue parenting their children. And so we sort of really thought of it as an opportunity to serve kiddos, but also to serve those other families that needed us in those really hard moments when they were in crisis and needed support and focus to be able to regain custody of their kids.
Wow. So I read, is this true that you've welcomed 9 foster children?
Yes. So it's actually, we're at number 10 now.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we've just taken on a new placement in the last couple of weeks. So we're at number 10. And again, it's every kiddo is different. Every situation is different. And it's always a learning curve to meet a kiddo and be able to adjust and adapt to their needs because you don't have a lot of context into the situation that we're in. So a lot of it is learning and getting to know them in those first couple of weeks.
Right. So what is one thing that either surprised you or you weren't aware of that you learned about once becoming a foster parent?
Being a foster parent is so much more than looking after the child that comes from a hard place. Yes, that's absolutely the focus, and that's what you're trained in. But being a part of the system of foster care is really, really hard because nothing prepares you for watching fellow parents struggle and navigating some of the hardest parts of humanity in such deep crisis. And you're caring for their child and you're wishing for them to be able to do the work that needs to be done to regain custody. And sometimes that just doesn't work out. So it's really hard to witness that because I can't imagine when we've said goodbye to kiddos and we've been heartbroken because we'll miss them. I think about what it must have been like for when their child was first removed and how they feel. If I'm heartbroken and I'm struggling in this moment, imagine what it was like for their child to leave them and to not know where they were going. So that's sort of one of the things that I think I've had to do a lot of work in understanding sort of the challenges of the system. There's a very sort of standard line that often people will say is the foster care system is broken. And inherently that's true because of the incredible complexities and nuances of every single case. There is a system, but it's really hard to have process and system around the complexity of being a human.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Is there any of the items that you have for the Cubs have been inspired by any of your foster children?
I wouldn't say they're necessarily specifically inspired by any one kiddo, but one of the things that I've noticed is the space that they live in is really critical to nurturing a calm headspace. And so one of the things that I've heard a saying is safe brains are learning brains. And so being able to sort of create a safe environment means it needs to be calm and really sort of the energy needs to be right. And so everything that's curated in the collections for eating, sleeping, and soothing, you'll probably notice that everything is very simple. It's very subtly branded. And there's sort of 3 very simple colors that are very muted and intentionally calming. So there isn't a lot of bright colors in the collections. And that's really intentional because I've created the space and sort of learned from the kiddos that the more calming the environment, the more impactful it can be in keeping them regulated and calm themselves.
That makes sense because when I was looking at your website, I just tend to go towards calming colors when I'm decorating my house and things like that. But I noticed that too about a lot of the items. So tell me a little bit. I saw the Percy bear. So how did you, I know you were saying about the hugs and 8 to 10 a day, which I think find so interesting. I had no idea about that. But so tell me about how he's made. How does it mimic, a hug? Why is this important for children?
Yes. So I've made it with a hug in mind so that all of the weight is distributed across his body.
Okay.
Oftentimes with different weighted products, you'll find that a lot of the weight is centered in the middle of the product. Percy is intentionally floppy. And it's so that the weights will drape over the kiddo or the adult to be able to provide the pressure in different places. And additionally, we chose to use unscented clay beads as the weighting product because it naturally holds heat very well. And we found that a lot of kiddos have, and it just people in general, can have sensitivities to things like lavender. And so we wanted to offer an alternative that didn't have a scent because sometimes that can actually do the opposite of what's intended. So we really sort of thought about how to create this environment that was much more inclusive for folks who do have scent sensitivities, but also like how to retain heat better, things like that.
So what are some of your best-selling items or, some of your favorite items?
I think obviously Percy is our number one. He's loved by so many people. I just read a review today of a mother who is caring for her son who's in a car accident. He's 32. He's now non-mobile and non-verbal. And Percy is providing comfort to him as he's going through this healing journey. And she said, I'm having some hugs with Percy as well. So those are the kinds of reviews that just really sort of solidify why I set out to make Percy and For the Cubs in the first place. But I think the other products that I've noticed are really popular are some of the like soothing puzzles and toys. It's amazing how using the brain can really sort of help regulate and calm it. So we have stacking bears. We have the in-place puzzle, super simple, but just very much requiring sort of those motor skills and focus for kiddos to be able to effectively solve these very simple puzzles. The other two things I think that are my favorite that I personally use and have used with all the kiddos in my care is the Sound Asleep sound machine, and particularly the beach waves. That is something that has put every single kiddo to sleep, and sleep can be a really tough territory for kids from hard places. So the beach waves are the winner. They seem to just make the impact every single time. And I know a lot of white noise, brown noise, those are also on the sound machine as well. But the beach waves with there's a seagull noise in there, it does the trick every time. And I think the last one is probably my personal favorite is the Keep Calm diffuser. It has a night light, it auto off, so there's no worries about like if it's running out of water, you need to worry about turning it off. It comes with a remote, so you can stealth turn it off if you need to from the kid's door. So I think a lot of those things are oriented around soothing and really make for setting kiddos up during the day so that they're well rested and they can go off and do their thing as they're growing.
So what do you think? I hear a lot of items for smaller children. What is the age for most of your items that you offer For the Cubs?
Generally speaking, the majority are for kids and under 5 years, probably 6. But I think one of the most surprising things is how many adults have leaned into the sound machine, the diffuser, and Percy.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's, the world is struggling right now. And so I think being able to manage and find calm and peace, even just in small moments, is really critical for people to keep plugging through day to day. So
I like how I just went, really? And I just went, oh, I have a sound machine. Like, no, I do. Yeah. So in the diffuser, what exactly does that do?
Yeah, so you can put different essential
People that
oils.
don't know.
Yeah, you can pop different essential oils in, and it just, instead of a candle, obviously with kiddos, that can be a little dangerous. So a diffuser is a really great alternative to a candle if you like burning candles, because it can pump out different mixes of essential oils. I like using bergamot and lemon just to be able to create this space so that your kiddos naturally, or you are naturally inhaling these scents that are intended to either provide calm or focus or energy, depending on what you've popped in the diffuser.
Do you know what I use for my kids with the diffuser is eucalyptus if they're having like a cough or something like that.
Exactly.
So that's perfect to use too when they're like a little congested. There's so many different ways to use one, but it's interesting because a lot of the moms that I talk to haven't heard about it, and they get excited when they hear about a product like that, but they actually have never heard of one.
Yeah, it's definitely helped the kiddos in my care, and I use them every single day. So
Nice. Can you talk about your partnership that you have, or how you're connected with One Simple Wish?
yes. So one of the things I formerly worked as the CMO at Charity Water. And one of the things that I absolutely loved about the work that they do is that they have a very clear model where the public's donations are trackable. And to me, that was something that was really important as I went into For the Cubs, is finding a partner where I could bring the customer along with the impact that they've created. Because there's a lot of brands out there that do great work with charitable organizations, but there's not necessarily that through line of being able to say, hey, like these are the actual people that you've helped. These are the actual individuals that have received benefit because you chose to shop with us. And so the thing that I love about Danielle and the team at One Simple Wish is that they've really sort of dug into how to track the impact for every single kiddo and every single wish. So you get to learn a little bit about the kid's story and why they've wished for this product. You get to learn when it was gifted to them. You may even get a little note from their worker or the foster parent on when they received it and how they responded. And so to me, that was a really powerful way to create connection to the foster care system and kids that are living in it, to the general public. And that sort of makes it more accessible for folks, because unfortunately, the foster care system and child welfare is a really uncomfortable topic for people to navigate, because oftentimes, unless you're in the child welfare system or you have familiarity with it, it's something that's just really hard to reconcile. And so being able to create accessible touch points that feel really positive and hopeful really sort of helps get the word out about foster care in a much more positive light.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see the future of For the Cubs?
My goal is to continue to serve families with these products that I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to curate them to be beautiful, to be safe, and to be super functional. But to serve as many kiddos in foster care as a result. That is really sort of my future perfect of what foster care is creating connection where people can understand it in a more deep and meaningful way. Without necessarily having to venture into all of the details of the system, but just understanding that when they choose to shop with For the Cubs, they're making a really meaningful impact on a kiddo's life. And I think for me, the more that I can do that, the more I think this work will be sort of my legacy, if you will. I think foster care is something that has taught me so much. It is definitely an active service, and I know what it means when you have a meaningful adult show up as a child and believe in you. And so being able to like offer that to kiddos in foster care in a much more meaningful way feels pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. I do, that's why I really wanted you to come on, because you're making these really high quality products that parents and foster parents would really enjoy. And you're also giving back to the community too, for other foster families. So it's really incredible what you've been able to do. You had a really great review that you talked about. Is there any other reviews that come to mind that really stood out and you're like, oh gosh, like all this work is paying off,
Yeah, I think there's two that really stand out, and they were completely unsolicited. One was for a little boy. A family friend was sending Percy to him, and they emailed me with photos of this little boy, and he wears glasses. And Percy has glasses as well. And she said, "You've made a little boy very happy. He is bullied at school constantly for wearing glasses. He often comes home in tears asking why he's different and why he's teased. And after receiving Percy, he is a completely different kid, because he has something to hold and to comfort him that looks like him." And so for me, that was like, oh my goodness, like this is it. Like that's what belonging is. It's knowing that you have a space in the world that is safe for you to be exactly who you are. And so that is something that really sort of sits with me even to this day. I remember getting it and just bawling my eyes out because it was just so meaningful that I was like, this is what I'm here to do. And the second one was of a woman who had lost her husband. And she was just devastated. And she emailed in and said, like, I received Percy. I miss my husband every day. He passed away 6 months ago, and this is the only thing that provides me comfort. And I think that my husband would be okay with that. And that for me was like, like she talked about how long they were married for and how they were best friends. And I think about my relationship with my husband. And, it's just like all of those sort of moments where you didn't even realize the impact you were having on someone who was heartbroken and missing their significant other in one of the most, difficult times of their life. And the bear that I designed is providing them comfort. And I think the lovely thing is that Percy's actually named after my grandfather.
Really?
Yeah, he was my safe adult that I spent every weekend with, and that's where the glasses come from. And he had a beautiful 50+ year relationship with my nana. And so to hear this woman talking about the comfort that Percy was providing her, it felt very full circle. So I think they're sort of two of my favorites, but we get stories like that all the time, which are so precious. And I really feel very honored to be serving people in this way.
Wow. I bet your grandfather is very proud of you. Like that was such a touch. The stories are so touching. And it's incredible. And, as a thank you, we'll be donating $250 to the One Simple Wish on your behalf. So that's what we like to do for all of the incredible work that, people are doing that come onto our podcast and share what your business and how you're touching other people. And I mean, I'm taken back that you are a foster. You've been a foster mom of 10 children. So how you're even able to have the time, I'm not really sure.
I'm unsure too.
You may want to actually have a course on like time management, because I would love to know how you do this all. But before I let you go, is there anything that we haven't covered that you think people should know?
I think the biggest thing to know is that while For the Cubs is a for-profit business, my wish and my goal is to serve as many families as possible, whether it be with beautiful products or whether it be granting wishes through One Simple Wish. And so when you're thinking about gifting to kiddos or buying something for your kiddos, I'd love you to keep that in mind.
Yeah, you are the perfect business to go to for the holidays. That's why I thought it would be great to have you on. I was like, well, she's got to hurry up and come on because we got to be able to turn this around before the holidays. But it's already starting to crank up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what date it is.
I know, it's flying by. It's quite terrifying, and this would slow down a little.
Yeah, this would be. I mean, you're going to start really cranking up with the holidays, so
yeah,
it's going to get real busy for you.
We're already starting to crank. So it's perfect timing. I'm so glad that I'm able to share more about For the Cubs.
This is perfect. And you're in Austin, Texas, but you ship nationwide, correct?
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, can you tell everybody website how to follow you?
Yes. You can find us at forthecubs.com. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook. We love to hear from everyone. If it's feedback, anything like that. I personally talk to all of our customers on a very regular basis. So I would love to get a message from you to be able to chit chat. So yeah, reach out anytime.
Perfect, Amy. And I'll make sure to put all of that in the show notes. So the website, all of social media handles, so you can follow For the Cubs and Amy. And thank you again, Amy, for coming on to the Truman Charities podcast. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode. Until next time. I learned so much from Amy, and I am in love with her business. This is perfect for just before the holidays. What is it? A week and a half before Christmas. So make sure to go on to For the Cubs and purchase some of these items. They have everything your baby would need. And remember that each order, you're helping a foster child. So it's really a win-win for everyone. If you'd like to follow the Truman Charities podcast, please make sure to follow us on Facebook at Truman Charities, Instagram, Jamie_Truman Charities. If you'd like to get on our newsletter so you don't miss any of our upcoming events, we have 3 major events per year: our Derby party, our family fun event, and our Halloween party. And then we also have happy hours that are not charitably inclined, but they're just a great way for people to get together in the community. And we have about 4 to 5 of those per year, but that's the best happy hour. Make sure to go on trumancharities.com and sign up for our newsletter. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but the best way to support this podcast is to make sure to write a review. So please go on to your Apple app, scroll down, hit the 5 stars, and write a short review for us. And while you're at it, click the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for tuning in. If you liked this episode, please make sure to rate and review our podcast. That is how more people learn about the Truman Charities podcast and our organization. And to make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes, subscribe. If you'd like to follow Truman Charities, you can follow us on Facebook at Truman Charities, Instagram at Jamie_Truman Charities, and check out our website, trumancharities.com.